You're very welcome to another edition of Page 180. And guys, look, there's only one topic we could discuss this week. So usually where we get into movie reviews and where we'd have I'd have a bit of a monologue at the start of the show and we do all of that. We're throwing that out the window. That can wait for Monday's show, and we're doing a special bonus show because, ladies and gentlemen, we have been looking forward to this not only for a few months, but for 5 years of our lives. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get right into it because it is time for... Star Gers, it's fucking Star Gers, just fucking Star Wars, Gerry and Jer. Star Gers, it's fucking Star Gers, just fucking Star Wars, Gerry and Jer. Because a long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, two Gers came together to discuss the amazing show that was Ahsoka. And for one last time, it all happened so quickly. I'm being joined by the one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend, Darth Gerry Soul. You're very welcome.
I'm like, which one's better, Darth Gerry or Darth Soul? Like Darth, in fairness, Darth Soul sounds like an actual Darth's name because there's been that many fucking variations of them. But Darth Gerry Soul, we go. Yeah, but I'm good. We certainly have a lot to talk about.
We do.
It's the end of the show now, and I am sad that it's over. Yeah.
A lot to discuss. And Gerry, no better man to discuss it with. Guys, before we begin, this whole show is going to be devoted to us discussing Ahsoka. And we're going to talk a bit about 2023 in Star Wars. Jeez, we're getting to that time of year already where we're kind of recapping 2023. This year's flying by. And as the past few weeks have flown by, it's over just as quickly as it felt like it started. But before we do, a spoiler warning. Okay, guys, this is a recap podcast. We're going to be discussing the episode. We're going to be spoiling the episode and everything in it. We're also going to be talking about everything surrounding the episode. So everything in Star Wars canon, all of the movies, the novels of Ahsoka and Thrawn in particular, comic books, wherever, like video games, anything is up for discussion here. The good news is we can't spoil this particular story because we don't know what's going to happen next. This is all brand new content. But ladies and gentlemen, before we get to our discussion, we're going to recap the finale one more time with our alternate recap of episode 8. And now that they've got their cargo packed and Elsbeth's hoop ready, Thrawn and the Night Sisters are having a party in the Witches Society to dress Morgan Elsbeth up as a member of KISS to reward her good work, while Thrawn watches like a big blue cook. Ahsoka and the crew give chase, adopting a tortoise and hare strategy of going around 5 miles an hour so the Nodis can keep up. Huyang helps Ezra build a new lightsaber, which he flashes up as the casuals say, ooh, lightsaber, where nerds like me and Gerry say, where did you get that kyber crystal, Ezra? Actually, very egregious. Ahsoka and Sabine reunited on the wing as Ahsoka told Sabine that Anakin always stood by her and that she'd always be there for her. Wait a minute, Gerry. Did she just say, I'll be there for you? Go on, Gerry, you know the words. You don't know the words. It's a fake song. So no one told you I'd get thrown off this cliff. Your force power is a joke, and my master's a Sith. I don't have any more. I only had a day to write it.
Jesus Christ.
Moving on. The TIE fighters attack and Sabine helps by crashing the only form of transport they have out of there. It's about as an effective form of defense as signing Andre Onana. Thrawn counters by sending an army of zombie stormtroopers, making it the second most unexpected recent use of zombies since Ireland beat South Africa. Elsbeth decides to sacrifice herself because all she ever wanted to do was dress up as Gene Simmons, and that was it. She's like, peace, I've done everything. But she goes out a G as well as a Gene as she's successful in slowing down Ahsoka despite getting dismembered herself. Sabine gets her redemption as she successfully manages to channel the Force in the last moment to thwart a zombie Death Trooper, then is able to push Ezra to safety aboard Thrawn's ship. She's like me whenever I learn a new word and I have to try and do it all the time and fit it into every sentence. That usually leaves people splenetic. Genetic, Gerry. That is one for you. Ezra makes it aboard the Chimera in textbook Ezra fashion, dressed up as a stormtrooper and impersonating them on the walkie. But Sabine opts to stay behind and save Ahsoka. That leaves us with Tron setting up his base in Dathomir. Ezra has a tearful reunion with Hera as Chopper was the first to see through his disguise. That broke me. Shin is setting up camp with the Empire soldiers left behind. We expected Balin's story to end with a bit of a cliffhanger, but didn't think it would actually end literally on the edge of a cliff. And Ahsoka and Sabine, having fulfilled their promise to Ezra, now take his place in Peridia. However, it isn't so bad as they've got the Nodis, fucking Morai the Owl, and Force Ghost Anakin Skywalker to keep them company. And that was season 1 of Ahsoka, culminating in part 8, the excellently named The Jedi, the Witch, and the Warlord. Gerry, we have much to discuss because we had different expectations that we spoke of last week going into this finale. You were kind of convinced that there was something more, that there was kind of going to be twists maybe regarding Ezra, Balin, Shin, and stuff like that. And look, we're going to break all of that down as we go on and get into the individual topics. But I was kind of saying that, like, look, I think this show is telling us what it is, and I don't think it's lying. I think that's going to be, and it was the case that the finale showed us it was what they were telling us it would be. It was just kind of like, it was the story that they were telling. There was no grand twists and stuff like that. Without getting into specifics too much and just kind of speaking about vibes, because I feel like our expectations may lead us down separate paths. Did you enjoy the finale?
Short answer, no.
Oh, okay.
Short answer, no. And I'll explain, right? This show, the first 2 episodes kind of went at a slightly faster pace and then slowed way down after that. So we were expecting that maybe episode 7 would pick up the pace and then it would be blockbuster, super mental shit going on in this one. And it didn't happen. It just kept at the same kind of slow pace for me. And there was a lot of what I believe is mistakes. And like you kind of touched on it in your alternate intro there. It just, for me, it didn't hit it. It didn't hit it. Like there's individual things that I thought, that's good, or that's good, or that's great. But just overall, for the episode that should have been, it just didn't hit it for me. Like it, I don't mind if I make a prediction and it doesn't come true. I don't care because I'm still getting fucking Star Wars.
Yeah.
You know, it's Star Wars. Come on, and it's the next season of Rebels. Like, why wouldn't I be happy? Well, when certain things happened, then I'm like, oh, right. Okay. And then certain things didn't happen in it. Like there was something very specific, and I know we'll get into the specifics there, but something very specific didn't happen in it. And I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake. And I think it's that one specific thing, and I know we are going to talk about it specifically. It's that one specific thing that I'm actually really pissed off about.
Okay.
So yeah, but to me then, like, now I feel better about the episode today than I did yesterday. When I first watched it, I was like, well, that's just ruined the entire fucking show for me.
Really?
Whereas I was like, I woke up this morning and I've been thinking about it all day. I was like, okay, stop being stupid. It hasn't ruined the fucking show, because the show has actually been great. It has. I can't deny it. The show has been great. But it was just the fact that certain things in this episode just pissed me off.
Okay.
It just pissed me off. So we'll get into the specifics. Yeah.
Super intriguing, Gerry. Super intriguing setup. I'm the opposite. I love this episode. I thought this was what it was. And for me, I went in expecting it to be that. I knew Ezra. I kind of like, you intrigued me a lot, and I was interested in your ideas, but it was like, I remember when we used to do low blows and we'd be predicting pay-per-views, and then at the end of it all, we talk about it, we get so excited about it, and then it's like, did we just ruin this pay-per-view by like setting up way too cool scenarios that they can never actually pay off? And to be honest, like, I've kind of gotten used to tempering that, where I'm like, that's the alternate cool world, and that's the kind of fan fiction era where it's like, what if it was that, and that's cool to have, because that's fun in our discussions. But I'm like, I try not to take it to the show, my expectations, and I tried to judge the show for what it is. And I'm not saying that that's what you're doing, by the way. I don't want to cast aspersions and say that that's your kind of judgment, because I don't know. We've deliberately not talked about this until we're going on the air. But for me, I liked it. There were so many little things in here that we'll touch upon. There were so many Easter eggs. It was wrapped up so poetically in terms of the main storyline, in terms of flipping the end of Rebels. It sets up something so intriguing. There is a devastating consequence that we discussed last week, particularly around Baylan, that we kind of knew was going to happen. But I can't blame the show or be angry with the show for that, because how could they know? And if anything, it just says how seriously they took Baylan and kind of what it was. So I'm not mad about that. It's not the show's fault. Was it perfect? No, there was some aspects where I'm like, but also it hit so hard. Like, I cried multiple times while watching this episode. It really, really hit me. And I just feel that the show has got it so right in a lot of ways that at the start of it, if you told me what we would get over the course of this 7 weeks, if I was to turn around at the end and say, nah, I'm like, no, I'm so fucking happy. I'm so happy that Dave Filoni went out and did his thing, because that is all I wanted to happen. And this was a very Dave Filoni heavy finale. There were so many throwbacks to the Clone Wars and Rebels that were kind of parsed through as we get through the specifics. But I love this episode. I really, really did. And all we've texted on is just our general first impressions of it, and then we've left it there because we felt like we might disagree on certain things. And I still don't know what those things are. But I was shocked when I heard that you didn't like it. Intrigued, because I value your opinion, and I want to kind of see if there's anything to it where maybe I'm not challenging enough. And I want to also see if there's anything that I can say that can make you kind of rethink it. Because ultimately, like, look, I'm sure you'd rather enjoy it if you can.
Well, you did do that with episode 5. Let's be perfectly honest. I was like, I didn't really get episode 5, but when you actually explained it to me, I went back watching it. I'm like, oh, fuck, he's right, the bastard.
but like, again, there could be a case where we might temper each other out, and there may be things where I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't think about it that way. So let's get into it, like, piece by piece. I want to start with the start. Let's talk about Ezra and his lightsaber. And what I liked about this was, for anyone who is coming to this fresh and hasn't watched the Clone Wars or Rebels, a running joke, and it kind of the thing that actually put a lot of people off Rebels at the start. It was just one of those little things that made people a bit nervous, because with Rebels is a risky show. Rebels is both, you're tackling a whole new bunch of characters, but you're also trying to tell the main Star Wars story through them. So I remember my first time watching Rebels, and I was like, I don't know about this. This is a fucking risk, because you are essentially saying that these new people I've never met before are the start of the rebellion. These are pre-Luke Skywalker. Like, that is a fucking swing. Now, they make it work. It is excellent, and it's one of my favorite TV shows ever. But one of the smaller details that many people bemoaned was the lightsabers in it were super skinny, and they're like, that's not how a lightsaber looks. Rah, rah, rah. What I loved here was they've actually gone back and canonized it. Dave Filoni has made it that there's Kanan Jarrus had a skinnier hilt than Ezra, and now Ezra has a skinny lightsaber, and that's what he made, because that's how he knows to make a lightsaber, because that's what he was taught. This discussion with Hu Yang and everything that came from this, and Ezra getting his lightsaber back again, there is the plot hole there that we kind of spoke about in the all recap. Is that something that bothered you, the fact that there was no kyber crystal, or where did the kyber crystal come from, or what were your thoughts on this?
When I first seen him building it, I'm like, the first thing that actually came into my mind was, okay, my theory is out the window with regards to Ezra. Now, I will touch on that again when we talk about the end of the episode.
Right.
But with regards to this, I was like, okay, so he's building a lightsaber. Okay. After refusing to use one, he then said, fuck, I'm going to make my own now. So having no kyber crystal actually didn't bother me that much. I was like, I was exactly like you. I was like, fuck's that again, the kyber crystal? Where? Because his lightsaber was green. Oh, now all of a sudden it's blue. I'm like, okay, where did he get the blue? Where's the crystal come from? Where'd it come from? But I think it was a mute point, because then they start talking about the whole thing about Hu Yang says, "Well, actually, this was Kanan's." I'm like, "Oh, you hit me right in the bollocks there, and all that." So I'm like, "Oh, come on now, you soppy bastards." It was a great moment, you know. Like Ezra Christ is that what I like to call him now because he looks like fucking Jesus. Um, it was a nice moment, and then you have the doubt in Sabine that she's watching him build it. He ignites it, and then she's gone. I was like, well, that's clearly she's doubting herself now because he he is a Jedi. It's what he is. Now the thing is, I like the fact that they're differentiating the likes of Sabine and Ezra and anyone else as the Boken Jedi, like Balin said a couple of weeks ago. I was like, I love that because there's the Jedi and then there's the Boken Jedi. I'm like, oh, that just gives it a whole new flavor. That's they're different. Like you could in a sense call Cal Kestis a Boken Jedi because he did more training outside the temple than he ever did in it. So I would definitely categorize him as Boken Jedi. I would love to see him in maybe a next season or in that film or everyone brought together would be fantastic. Absolutely. But we're getting off point here. But basically, he is a Jedi. He's a Boken Jedi, and I like the fact that he's differentiated between normal Jedi because there is a difference between them. They're, normal, say, Jedi wouldn't use their feelings, wouldn't they would close themselves off. Whereas Boken Jedi, like even Luke Skywalker used his feelings, so it's like they are different. They're Jedi, but they're different. And I like that idea. I liked everything to do with Hugh Yang is just fucking great. Yes. I just love him. Like David Tennant has knocked it out of the fucking park. He's just been fantastic. And like he better be back for the next 20 seasons or whatever it is. Just give me a show about him. Actually, just bring all the droids together and give me a show of all the droids together, and I would be happy. But this was a good moment. As I said, it blitzed my my theory about Ezra possibly being bad or maybe aligned with Tron or whatever. But as I said, I will speak more on that later on. But it was a nice starter to it. It was a good scene. And as I said to you when I started, I didn't like the episode, but there was a lot of things in the episode I did like. But then there was other things I didn't. But this was certainly one of those things that I liked. Because I'm very much in conflict. I'm like, part of me wants Ezra to just be Ezra. And the other part of me is like, oh, wouldn't it be cool for him to be a bad guy? It's I'm very much in conflict. But last night won out, and I'm like, okay, well, he's a good guy. And I'm like, yeah. And throughout this episode, you very much see the Ezra of old.
Yeah.
The sassy. Like we've talked about each individual character, the likes of Sabine and Ahsoka and Ezra, and how when they're sassy, they're rebel sassy. And he was very much rebel sassy in this episode. He was the old Ezra again. And I'm like, okay, you know what? Let's go with the good guy Ezra. Like fuck that bold Ezra. Fuck him.
Yeah.
This was good. This I was happy about this. But I would still like to see him not necessarily turn to the dark side, but be like, listen, I had to work with Tron because this shit was going down or whatever it may be. And I think that would have been really fucking cool. Didn't happen. I'm not pissed off it didn't happen. But again, we'll talk further as we go on.
Okay. I loved, and I agree, they really did. They got it so right with Emma Nastafi. Like they just nailed it. And all of the casting. Like the one I was a bit iffy about at the start was Hera, but Mary Elizabeth Winstead won me over. All of the casting of the characters worked so well, and I'm so relieved of that. And again, it's why I just have so much goodwill towards this show, because it just was so true to the show that I loved in Rebels. Like even when and again, we're jumping around a little bit, but just like textbook Ezra was when he got on board Tron's ship, and then you see him like take down the stormtroopers, take it down, and then like you hear them on the radio, and you're just like, you see him and you're like, he's gonna dress up as a stormtrooper, he's gonna impersonate him, and then just like Jedi 1, and it's like, yes, that is Ezra. I'm just literally Leo pointing meme the whole time. It was brilliant. I want to talk about the Night Sisters because it was a tough day for Elsbeth, who essentially made her Night Sister confirmation, then was asked to die within like an hour. Tough day at work. Like, we also had confirmation that they can bring people back from the dead, and we now see that again. Tron is essentially he's going to set up Dathomir as his base. As his base. What were your thoughts on kind of Elsbeth's arc and kind of the Night Sisters and what we learned in this?
Well, anything to do with the Night Sisters with regards to Clone Wars was amazing. I loved the you know, you only ever hear of the Sith and the Jedi through all the stories, but then this was it's something different. Yeah. You know, they're dark side influence, but they weren't all bad either. You know, before Maul was turned, he wasn't bad.
No,
you know, he's essentially just a man, and he was turned by them. But I have loved the Great Mothers. I thought the look of them, I thought the acting, everything about them, it was very true to Clone Wars and to Rebels. Very, very good. Elspeth basically, you know, the old eyes turning black. I was like, oh, it's a cool moment. But it was at that point I was like, it's cool. She's dead.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't see. This is the thing. I didn't want her to die because I thought, number one, she's a great character. Now the thing is, with all this stuff that's going on with them being people being resurrected and all, you never know. There's a possibility she could be brought back. But I thought her arc, she was a great character. I would have liked to see more of her. Her getting the Mother Talzin's sword or blade or whatever that was fuck. I was like, oh,
yeah,
that's cool.
Because for anyone who doesn't know, by the way, Mother Talzin she was like the queen of Dathomir before it was kind of wiped out by the Empire. So she was like and that happened during the Clone Wars. So essentially how Maul became Maul was, as Gerry said, he was like a Night Brother who were kind of subservient to the Night Sisters, the witches. Talzin was the Queen Witch who got in bed with Dooku, who needed a weapon. And kind of what she did was she made Maul from a normal Night Brother who was kind of just a regular dude, and his brother Sauvage. They made them into absolute beasts basically and turned them into Sith power beings. But then eventually there was a quarrel with the Empire, and Dathomir ended up getting destroyed. Sorry, but that's Talzin's sword is what Elsbeth was given. Sorry to interrupt. I just want that context for people who haven't watched Clone Wars.
I thought it was cool to see that again, because at the end of the day, Talzin fought oh Jesus, what's his name? Samuel L. Jackson, basically.
Yes.
What's his fucking name? What's the character's name?
I know, I'm blanking as well, but yeah,
we know. Yeah, but basically, and he was one of the, you know, he effectively beat Palpatine in a fight, so he was one of the best lightsaber duelists in the Order. And Talzin went up against him and didn't lose effectively. You know, I was like, fucking hell, like. So this was a cool moment, and it seemed to give her some sort of extra boost in her abilities, because my God, was she a badass with it. But I thought her arc was fantastic. It was a very final, you know, there was a finality to it. You like, as soon as you see her getting she was effectively made a great mother, I suppose. That's what she was. And then as soon as you see Maul saying, you know what you have to do. And I was like, oh, she's fucking dead, lads. She's dead. I was sorry to see her go, because she was a great character, great actress as well. Just seeing her originally in The Mandalorian to now, her story was great. She was great. Unfortunately, we you know, as I said, there's maybe 1 or 2% chance we might see her again because of, you know, the darkness and the witchcraft and the necromancy. I suppose that's what it is, of bringing people back to life. But when they turned her, I thought that it just looks cool.
Yeah,
it just, because she's not wearing the same garb that they're wearing, you know, the mothers are wearing, but she has the black eyes. I'm like, it almost makes her look undead herself. I'm like, that's cool. That's really, really cool. It's a great detail. But I want to point something out in that particular scene. So when they're doing that magic, and you know, they're touching her head, and then you get the green lines, and then she's got the black parts in the face. There's something I want to touch on, and it's Tron standing directly behind her.
Yeah, little weirdo. I just like to watch.
It was effectively that, but for me, it proved something. is that, yeah, okay, he might be in this alliance with them, but he had such a look of disdain on his face. He was like, he didn't like what he was saying. So clearly he's not really into something that we knew about Tron. I'm like, okay, they're confirming that. I'm like, God, okay. Well, it's not really confirming it, but it's like we're speculating on because of his particular face. Because in other scenes, he's kind of have not a smirk, but he can be very smug looking. In this scene, he wasn't. He was very much hate this shit.
Just contempt.
You know what I mean? It's pure contempt on his face. But a great scene. I like the fact that we still have the Great Mothers. I think if we go on again, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. I think they're going to be cool. Anything to do with the Night Sisters just is great. I do again. I want to touch back on this again at the end of the show because there's a theory on running around in my head. I'm like, now if this actually comes about, that's gonna be fucking unreal. But we'll get to that. Don't worry, we'll get to
that. There was a cool little tidbit as well, just on Ezra, that Ezra kind of revealed. So I think that there's a possibility we haven't seen the last of Elsbeth, because do you remember the part where they're kind of coming up to the Chimera and Ezra is kind of giving the cliff notes of like what happened and how he got away from Tron and went into hiding on Peridia. He used very interesting language. He's like, Tron woke up the Night Sisters. So, which kind of also like ties in with they're able to, wake up the dead, and kind of we got zombies there as well. We got a lot going on here, and we got to see people. Last week we got a taste of it, but we kind of admitted we weren't fully satisfied, and that was fine. It made sense because it was the penultimate episode, because we just got a little glimpse. But here we got everyone in full swing. We got Ahsoka in full general mode. We got Tron in full military commander mode. We got Ezra back in action with a lightsaber. And perhaps most controversially, and this is the one thing that I've seen is kind of split opinion online, we saw Sabine finally use the Force. For me, I didn't hate this because it was telegraphed. We knew from episode 1 it's going to happen, and it's going to happen like in a moment like this. Like, again, if we could have written it, we probably could have predicted, like, maybe not a zombie's about to kill her, but we could have predicted that was going to happen. What were your thoughts on kind of those key points? But particularly, I think Sabine using the Force is the big headline here.
I'll go into the Sabine part first. And this is now where Gerry starts to go, I did not like this.
Okay.
So they go up there, and, the fight all the way up to the top of the temple was actually really pretty good. That there are a point you're like, oh, someone's going to get it here. Oh, fuck, someone's going to get it. Oh, no, okay, we're okay. So when they get to the top, and I thought this particular scene with the Death Troopers. Now, the Death Troopers are corrupted stormtroopers. They're still men, but they're corrupted stormtroopers. But then to see what they've actually become, because they're dead Death Troopers, and one of them, when the mask is broken, you see the jaw hanging out. I'm like, that's not someone who just died a few minutes ago and was brought back to life. That's someone who's dead ages. I was like, that is the proper zombie. That is cool.
Yeah.
So when she is reaching out and you see the little flicker and it starts to move, I'm like, I'm okay with this. I'm actually okay with this. It was like, and then it goes, and she kills him. I was like, that's cool.
Yeah.
She killed it. That was really, really well done. And then it comes to the part that really pissed me off.
Okay.
So I want to take you back all the way back to Empire Strikes Back. So the first time Luke kind of uses the Force in terms of doing something with it, not just destroying a Death Star, but doing something with it. He reaches out. He's hanging upside down in a cave. This big monster's about to come and fucking eat him. He reaches out. The lightsaber's barely move. It's barely. Boom. And then he gets it and he kills the fucking, or chops its arm off and he legs it. Fine. Okay. And we know now that probably the most, or one of the most powerful Force users ever is Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
So he goes from there. He goes to Dagobah. He gets training with Yoda. But even after, I don't really know, an X amount of time it is, he's there for a while anyway. He's still not really good with using the Force, and he can barely move rocks. He's kind of moving his X-Wing, but he doesn't really, he's not really, like, he's a bit shit, basically. And then you've got Sabine. So you've got the scene where she gets the lightsaber, and I would have been very happy if they'd have left it at that. But no, they couldn't. You run and I'll push you. Fuck off. No, I'm sorry. It doesn't work like that. You don't all of a sudden, oh, you got the lightsaber there. Oh, now you're really powerful and you can push somebody over to the Star Destroyer. Fuck off. No. And this pissed me off no end.
Okay.
If it was a thing where it was Ezra saying, right, you run and jump and I'll push you. And then she makes over there and then he does, like, because Jedi are great at leaping fucking great distances. He could have just done it. So I was like, if they'd have just done it like that, it'd have been fine. But it was like, no, Ezra, I know I can do this. I'm like, no. So you're saying you're better than Luke Skywalker? Is that what you're saying? You're really saying you're better than Luke Skywalker? You're better than the most powerful Jedi ever. You're better. Fuck you, Sabine. Get in the bin. No, I'm sorry, but no, there is no fucking way that just because she was able to grab the lightsaber with the Force, that all of a sudden, okay, I could push you a couple of 100 yards now, so I'm fine now. I can do whatever I want. Look, there we go. Hold on. There's now Ahsoka's beside us. We'll all go together. Fuck off. I'm sorry, but this pissed me off no end, and I'm actually quite surprised by Filoni for actually having this in it because. Like he is the chosen one with regards to Star Wars. He has the keys to Star Wars now. He knows the lore inside and out. He knows back to back, front, back, cover, everything. Front, middle, end, the whole fucking lot. So for him to put this in, I was like, no, that's just wrong. It's wrong. Like Rey in the very first film gets a light. She oh fuck, she got the lightsaber. She didn't do anything fucking else, did she? No. Not a single fucking thing. And then when she goes to give Luke Skywalker the lightsaber, she can barely do anything then either. And she's supposed to be like second or third most powerful behind fucking Luke Skywalker. So you're telling me Sabine, who's somebody who's never been able to use the Force ever before, she couldn't feel it, there was no connection, nothing, and all of a sudden she's doing this? No. I'm not buying it. I am not buying it. It pissed me off. And it was at that point the episode then started to piss me off. And I'm like,
okay.
Nope.
I don't disagree with anything you say, but I also don't mind it. I can accommodate creative license, but I also agree with what you say in that you expect more from Dave Filoni.
Yeah.
So I agree with everything you say, but it just doesn't anger me in the same way that it angers you because I can accept it. I'm like, they needed a way to get Ezra, like, essentially it was just a necessary kind of caveat that they needed a way to get Ezra onto the ship, separated from Sabine and Ahsoka. And I really like where we ended up. I liked the poetic symmetry of the roles being reversed, where Thrawn and Ezra are now like back home, and Sabine and Ahsoka, perhaps the two people who are best equipped to actually combat the new threat that has invaded the galaxy, are left behind. And now it's about what's going to happen there. So I'm very okay with everything that came from that. So I'm willing to overlook that. But I don't hate it. I don't disagree with anything you say. You are factually correct. That stuff just doesn't tend to bother me. I can laugh at it. You know what I mean? And I can laugh it off. But everyone responds differently, and everyone has a right to kind of hold on to the things that they cherish and that they value about Star Wars. So actually, where I thought we were going to disagree here and maybe have it out a bit, I don't at all, because that's what you find important and that's what you kind of hold sacred. And I agree in that Dave Filoni should be held to those higher standards. If stuff like this happened in Obi-Wan, I don't think you'd be as angry. But because it's in this show that is as true to the canon as this show is being, to have a disconnect like that, I totally get it. It just doesn't bother me because I just like... It got us where we needed to be. And I don't know what else. There was no way that Ezra was going to make a choice to go without them. So it had to be something where he went first and then Sabine chose to stay. And that's where they came to.
I have to say, that whole idea of what you're saying, kind of like the reverse rebel ending. I like the idea of, right, they've done their job. Ezra is now back, but they didn't stop Thrawn.
Mm.
So the two of them have gone back, and you have and it gives a whole idea, a whole different direction to how the next season, if nothing announced yet, but
Oh, we will,
how the
yeah.
next we will definitely get it, but
Yeah.
how the next season is going to go. But I just feel like they could have the two of them could have gotten onto the ship, and then all of a sudden there's a lurch, and the ship starts to move. She sees Ahsoka fighting with Elspeth and the stormtroopers. She looks at Ezra. She looks at Ahsoka. Ezra, Ahsoka. It cuts away to Ahsoka. The ship is starting to move away, and then all of a sudden she appears. They could have done it like that. They didn't have to do the whole like force push fucking thing. I get it. I get it that I am being very critical. I'm sorry, I have to be critical about this because this was the finale of a show that has been to date brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So I have to be critical of this, and I just felt that, as you said, Filoni has to be kept, has to be held at a higher standard. He has to be, because he is effectively the chosen one of George Lucas. It's as simple as that. So for him to make that now, the thing is, George Lucas is not perfect either. He has made mistakes in the past as well. So at the end
the
of the day,
Clones, Phantom Menace.
there you go. Well, I like those films. But for me, it was just it because, as I said to you, the pace of the show had been so much that I needed more from. I needed this episode to be almost perfect. It didn't have to be perfect, almost perfect, and it didn't. This didn't hit for me. I'm like, and I get why you're like, that's fine. It's fine. I don't disagree with Gerry, but that's fine. But for me, I'm like, that just pissed me off.
Yeah.
It just.
Different people have different like kind of priorities, and again, I don't mind, because I have my priorities. Do you know what I mean? My priorities are, I just want these characters honored and so on and so forth. Like, but I totally get how, like, again, if Filoni is going to take the praise for what he's done, like, and kind of the how much detail he's put into this, and the balls that it took to actually give us Rebel season 5 in live action when half of his audience are not going to have seen the previous, and he did it anyway because he knew it meant that much. If we're gonna give him the credit, and if we're gonna essentially suck his dick for that, we can hold him responsible if he does something that, and I don't disagree. Like, it isn't consistent with the power scaling that we've gotten in Star Wars history before. So yeah, I don't disagree with anything you say. I want to talk about zombie stormtroopers. Like, this is new for Star Wars, and this is like kind of a Filoni original, and taking kind of a page out of Marvel's book and bringing zombies into kind of a new world. How did this work for you?
I loved it. This is something that has been teased on and off and on and off for many, many years. There have been fan edits, there have been fan-made films and fan-made kind of cartoony things of Stormtrooper, like an abandoned Star Destroyer, and people go aboard it and they're all zombies. I'm like, that's what I want. I want to see fucking zombies. But for me, I loved it for the fact that the previous weeks we were like, Thrawn isn't really acting like Thrawn, to the point where, like, he's saying like, oh, acceptable losses. Like, that's not fucking Thrawn. And as soon as I saw them being zombies, I was like, oh, that's why we're okay. Thrawn is okay. It's absolutely fine. Don't worry. He hasn't fucked it up yet. It's absolutely fine. Because acceptable losses is the fuckers were already dead. They were already dead. They'd been brought back to life, and they were like, well, it's acceptable because they're not alive anymore. So it's fine. So to me, it kind of restored my faith in Filoni's Thrawn. I'm like, okay, that's absolutely fine. How they did it was spectacular. I absolutely loved it. They've just defeated like 20 or 30 stormtroopers, and like, yeah, just another day in the life of a Jedi. Ha 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 ha. Let's walk along. What the fuck? And boom, fucking stormtroopers. And it's not like, I love the fact that they didn't get up and automatically start walking like a stormtrooper again. They got up, and some of them start shooting. Some of them start walking like a zombie. Now, some of them did get up and start walking normally, which was fine. It meant that every one of them was different. The whole lot was different. I'm like, this is really, really cool. And as good as the zombie stormtroopers were, the zombie death troopers were the absolute highlight for me, because death troopers are dangerous at the best of times, but when you can't actually fucking kill them, like Ezra literally put it into his fucking chest, and he was like, yeah, okay, bang. And he's still shooting. I'm like, oh, this is fucking cool. I'm like, yeah, this is what I'm living. This is what I'm living for. The dead death troopers, the dead stormtroopers. That was cool, and it now strengthens. Like he now has. It's not an army of stormtroopers anymore. He has an army of fucking zombie stormtroopers. Like that is so cool, and it was kind of giving me like um almost Game of Thrones vibes, like the Army of the Dead.
Yes.
You can't really kill them and like chop their head off, maybe you do something like that, but can't really kill them. Like, oh my god, this is going to be so cool. Next season, when you're like, whoever these stormtroopers are going to be fighting, they're like, you can't kill us. We're just going to stand back up and shoot you. I'm like, oh my.
I thought exactly the same thing. I thought of Hard Home, the episode where it's like, come at me, Snow, and they just raise the dead, and you're just like, fuck. Everyone is fucked. Yeah, brilliant. I totally agree. Loved it. Such a great twist on the Star Wars universe. Whereas I think Marvel, don't get me wrong, I love zombie stories. It's one of my favorite genres of storytelling, and especially now we're in the middle of October, perfect peak zombie season. Love it. So I don't hate Marvel using it. Like, it is interesting to see zombie apocalypse, but superheroes. But that's kind of what it is. It is just like every zombie apocalypse ever, except there's superheroes involved, and how do their powers like make that into a combustible situation? That's how Marvel took it. This isn't that. This isn't them throwing in just, oh, what if we just did a zombie apocalypse in Star Wars? It's not that. It makes sense. It's believable. It respects kind of the Night Sisters could do that, you know what I mean? And kind of it adds a threat to the stormtroopers that we've just never had before. But also it has that evolution vibe that we need if we are to believe Tron is a Palpatine Thanos level threat. To carry the next few series, there needs to be that evolution. It can't just be the Empire, because we've now seen the Empire get its ass kicked for 5 decades. So we need to see something new and a new threat. So
I have ideas about that, and that's for the end. But I have serious fucking ideas about that.
Okay. And I love the evolution of it. So big fan. I want to talk about, again, something which I don't want to annoy you or piss you off again, but let's talk about Bale and Shin. Okay. We both agreed that their arc was the most interesting, but got very little time. And exactly what we worried would happen last week happened. Essentially, we got none of them. And I'll give you my thoughts, but we did see Balin's plan become a little unearthed as he seemed to set up camp beside a statue of... You've seen some statues here. If you don't know what they were, if you've never seen Clone Wars, what you're looking at there is something called the Mortis Gods, or the Ones, okay? And for those who don't know and haven't watched Clone Wars, we've touched on it before, but we've never done a full explainer. The Mortis Gods are essentially Force gods, who we meet in one of the most incredible arcs in Clone Wars. And for me, it happened in the 3rd series, and it was, for me, and I imagine many others, the moment in Clone Wars where you went, this is different. This is something fucking special. This is not just like up until that point, it's a cool cartoon with a bit of added depth. It's like, it's making Anakin badass. It's fleshing out the clones. It's cool. It's nice. It's not cool little Easter eggs. But then when the Mortis arc comes in, you're like, this is something fucking different and unbelievable, and they are taking this in a whole new direction. And that's where I think Dave Filoni ascended to god level status for fans like myself and Gerry. The Mortis gods are 3 gods. They're made up of the father, the son, and the daughter. The son represents the dark side, the daughter represents the light side, and the father represents the balance between the two. Crucially, in this shot, another little Easter egg, we see the daughter is destroyed. So that perhaps suggests that the dark side has won as far as Peridia goes. We don't know what it means, but it's just kind of there's something to that. It was no accident that the daughter's statue was destroyed. In the Clone Wars arc, so much fucking happens. So you've got Obi-Wan at the start. This is the start of the arc. This is where it just starts to get a little bit weird. Obi-Wan essentially starts talking to Qui-Gon, and has a fever dream, and then just kind of is able to kind of connect with him. And we don't know if that's a dream or not, but we sense that something bigger is happening here. Anakin turns to the dark side. He's kind of corrupted by the sun until he sees the future and what he is to become. So Anakin sees that he's going to become Darth Vader, and then then that's what kind of swings him to the dark side, because he's like, I have to prevent that, and almost becomes Darth Vader in the process. Of course, that is later undone because obviously, you know, he didn't know he was going to become that, and he comes back to the light after Ahsoka dies in this. She literally dies in this, and then she's resurrected. Again, like, if it sounds just crazy and wild and just twist for the sake of it, it's not. It's incredible. You need to watch it. It ends with the son, who's desperate for power, accidentally killing the daughter. The father then conspires with Anakin to take out the out of control son, but dies himself in the process. We later then see the Mortis gods in Rebel at the entrance. Ezra and Sabine find to the world between worlds, where we obviously spend some time with Sabine and Anakin early in this series. There's a lot going on here, and I know this probably pissed you off, and I want to give you time to kind of get your thoughts out, but I want to kind of just caveat them with my own first.
Mm-hmm.
This was sad to me, but again, I didn't piss me off. It disappointed me because, yeah, of course, we didn't get a lot of Bale and Shin, and they were the most interesting characters in this series, in spite of everything. And we got the characters that we wanted to get, and they lived up to the hype. But it just made me sad. I didn't mind it, because if Ray Stevenson hadn't died, we'd love this, because we'd be like, holy shit. They have just given us the fact that Balin is going to get a huge fucking story arc in season 2. Like, he is going to be next level, and we would be so excited about this, but that's not happening because Ray Stevenson died. And it's fucking tragic, because he was just about to get the Star Wars arc that he deserved and he'd earned, and this was such a fucking, like, it's almost James Dean levels of what could have been, you know what I mean? And it's heartbreaking. So I'm not going to hold that against the show because we didn't get a lot of them, because how were they to know? How were they to be able to anticipate we need to film more, because what if Ray Stevenson dies? They couldn't have. He died suddenly and way before his time. So it's heartbreaking, but I can't criticize the show for it. But am I wrong? Because I know this meant way more to you in particular. I loved this, but you loved this. Balin and Shin throughout. So give me your thoughts on this.
For me, so I've always had my favorites, obviously, in Star Wars, like Palpatine, Vader. I love all the Sith Lords. I love like Palpatine, Dooku, Vader. Obviously, there's a smattering of other characters like Boba Fett and stuff like that. Absolutely love. But for me, after watching Balin Skull after like 4 or 5 episodes, I'm like, he's in my top 3. He is straight up there into my top 3, because not only was the character interesting and all you wanted to know was more. All you wanted to know was more about him, but it was then the performance of fucking Ray Stevenson that just captivated me. And it was the fight, particularly between him and Ahsoka, that first fight. I was like, this is next level amazing. This is exactly what Star Wars fans have been looking for. This is the show that brings them back to life, because, you know, there has been a bit of fatigue with the amount of things that have been coming out. There's been a sour taste in a lot of people's mouth with regards to the sequel trilogy. And I think this, you know, a lot of people love Mandalorian, a lot of people loved Andor, a lot of people loved Obi-Wan, but for me, this was the show that was going to bring everybody back together, because people have been absolutely loving it. But for me specifically, it has to be Balin Skull. There's not a single online review, there's not a single post, there's not a single tweet, there's not a single thing that said Ray Stevenson was shit, because it would be an absolute fucking lie, because he was the greatest thing, the greatest character in Star Wars for 30 fucking years. That's how good of a character he is. That's how good of an actor Ray Stevenson was. And yet, when I saw the end, I was pissed the fuck off. Now, I can't blame Filoni or Disney or Lucasfilm or any about that, because there was nothing, literally not a single thing they could have done. Nothing. They couldn't have changed it. There was, you know, there's always extra footage that you use, that you film, that you don't use, but nothing that they could have used for this. It was just nothing that could be done. This was how they wanted to go out, because as you said, if Ray Stevenson hadn't died, seeing him stand on the fist of the father, you're like, This is gonna be so good when we see it next season. And now the realization is hitting that no matter what, we have to live with whoever they choose to now. I'm not even going to say replace Ray Stevens, because you can't replace him. It's not possible. Somebody that now has to step in and try and be as good as him. And I think that it wasn't the fact that the show couldn't do anything. Filoni couldn't do anything. Fucking George Lucas couldn't have done anything. It's the fact that we have to live with someone else playing this character. And I'm like, it's like looking at, say, Robert Downey Jr. Say he did the first 2 Iron Men and died. Could you have really replaced Robert Downey Jr.? Probably fucking. You know, he was that good as the character, you couldn't do it. You look at now, like, we're now getting to the stage now where, like, say, Wolverine, so Hugh Jackman, he's played Wolverine now for 20 odd years. He's now like, I'm probably going to do maybe 1 or 2 more films, and that's it. And then the possibility of him being replaced by somebody younger, wherever it is, it's never going to be the same. So Baylan Skoll being played by anybody else is not going to be the same. People said to me, "Oh, well, you have to look at, say, Dumbledore." I'm like, no, I'm sorry, but no, it's not the same thing. Richard Harris was great as Dumbledore, yeah, but what was it like? If he was replaced by somebody else, would it ruin the show? No, it didn't, because then you have Michael Gambon, who was just equally as good, and he was absolutely fantastic. To me, it has ruined it for me. I'm like, I now have to. I'm like, I don't want the character to die, but he's not going to die, and we now have to live with someone else playing the character. And I'm hoping that whoever does it justice. But I'm also hoping as well is that no matter what, whether they get a really good replacement or not, they have to continue the story, because Ray Stevenson set it up so fucking well. He did it so fucking well that if they don't, it would actually be a disservice to him. They have to give the character the arc that he deserves.
Yeah.
So if it means that we're going to get someone else, because we are going to get someone else, it's as simple as that. Are they going to play them as good? Time will tell. I don't think nobody will replace Ray Stevenson. It's as simple as that. And I just hope the person who does come in is humble enough to say, I can't replace him. I can only do the best I can. Yeah. And I'm like, that's all it is. Now, that aside, okay, that pissed me off. Obviously, and you knew where my anger was coming from. You could point it immediately. You knew where it was going. But when you start to look at it logically, and you put that aside, that ending with him standing there is amazing.
Yeah.
And it sets up something that could be, it could eclipse anything that's ever been done in Star Wars. This arc, everything that, because it's not just about Tron getting back to the other universe. It's not about how Jesus, Ahsoka is now trapped somewhere else. How is she going to get back? It's all those elements now tied in with this, because as I said to you a couple of weeks ago, I felt like everything else that was happening in the show was trying to distract you away from the real story. And this is the real story. This is what they're aiming for, is that whatever Baylan Skoll is looking for, when he's standing on that fucking fist, you see the 2 statues, you see the crumbled remains of the daughter. He looks out to this mountain. There's a light at the top of the mountain. I'm like, this is going to be fucking epic. Whatever this story is, Filoni obviously knows what he's doing. Whatever this fucking story is, it's going to be next level. This could possibly eclipse anything in the Skywalker saga, anything that the Palpatine or Vader or Luke ever did. This could be literally the best thing we've ever seen in Star Wars, if they get it right. Now, again, I want to leave my theories, because this is like, I have a theory about this. I have a theory about nearly everything in this. This is the thing about, I
think this is a good thing. Give us your theory now on what you think is next.
I have seen so many things online about this, and I've tried to piece things together, but it's obviously, number one, it's about the Mortis gods. That's what it is now.
Yeah.
I feel what was said in Clone Wars has come to pass, is that Anakin is now the father. Because the father said you are destined to become me, or whatever it may be. So we saw him at the end, and we'll get into that as well.
Ooh.
But now that Balin Skull is there, and he has felt a power unlike anything else out there. But for me, it kind of helps the case that it is Shin, isn't it? Shin
Hadi.
Shin. That Shin couldn't feel what Balin Skull felt. No one else could. He was like, can you not feel it? Can you not hear it? Because whatever it is speaking directly to him. This power is reaching out directly to him. It's kind of like the Great Mother's reaching out to Morgan. It's like she heard it in her dreams. Balin feels it in his fucking bones. So the whole idea is that you had the father, you had the daughter, you had the son. I think next time we see Balin Skull, he's going to find the mother. And when I say the mother is next level, the Mortis gods were powerful. But when you look at the lore behind it and you look at the expanded universe, the mother was... You could have 10 Palpatines and she wouldn't come close. For her to be in the books, and I don't necessarily think... Yeah, in the Legends canon, I don't necessarily think we're going 100% down that route, but I just feel that in the books, there was Luke Skywalker and his New Jedi Order. There was Darth Krayt and their... I don't know if Darth Krayt is a man or woman. Darth Krayt and their Sith. And it took their combined force to beat the mother. Now, the mother was Abeloth. It is Abeloth, I think. And when you see the artwork for Abeloth online, it's terrifying, absolutely terrifying. It's a woman with like kind of long white blonde hair, but and her mouth obviously it's like a smile, but it's almost Joker-esque, and it goes all the way up to here, and it's just full of sharp teeth. I'm like, that is fucking cool. That the look is amazing. That could be amazing, but she's up there as the most powerful force user in because she's a force god, essentially. She in the canon, or not in the previous canon, in the Legends, she was a mortal that came to serve the Mortis gods. She was made to the mother, and she was good. She was a good person, but she decided then, I have to live forever. I'm getting old now, and these aren't fucking aging. I need to live forever. She drank from a fountain and swam in a pool. The fountain was dark side, the pool was light side, but she was corrupted, and essentially she became evil to the point where even the sun was like, this is too much for us, so they had to imprison her. And now that the Mortis gods are gone, she has reached out from this place where she is hidden. And that's what I feel like is coming. So it's because it's the Mortis gods are no more. They're dead. And to me, that's the only logical explanation that was the reason they gave us that fucking the image of Balin Skull standing on the statue.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's what it is. And I know you don't. I know you were like, I don't think so. I know I kind of don't want to hear it, but I feel that in the be all and end all, this being Abeloth or the mother, or whatever you want to call her, this will be the Thanos. This will be, when we get to that movie, this will be the villain.
Okay.
And I just feel, because again, I want to leave a little bit for the end, but I just feel there's other stuff going on with Tron, but we'll get to that.
Okay. A couple of things. First off, on recasting Ray Stevenson, and I don't want to kind of talk too much because, again, a man's died here, and we want to kind of talk as much about celebrating his life and his performance here. And again, you know, as disappointing as this is, the show did give it to us, and we got to get that. And it's just a shame that in his defining role, perhaps, at least as far as Star Wars is concerned, he's not around to see how much the public loves him. But we know, based on how important he is to the story, that Dave Filoni at least appreciated him, and how he defied all odds, because when we saw him and Shin in the trailer, we're like, what? No, don't give us them, just give us the characters we want. And then they came and took over the show and became the most interesting thing. I think Dumbledore is a good example. Okay, the late great Michael Gambon as well, rest in peace. Recently passed away, of course. And I think he actually is a good example. And not to say that he replaced Richard Harris or that Richard Harris wasn't replaceable. I think he was a good example because he decided to play the character different. That's why it worked. Richard Harris was exactly what Dumbledore needed to be when Richard Harris played him, because that was the point he intersected with the movies, where he's this sweet old grandpa figure that's just so like wholesome and protective, and just, you know what I mean, you just want to like believe in. Whereas Michael Gambon came in and he played him as Dumbledore is in the later movies, where he's wild, he's unpredictable, can we trust him, you know, and he plays that the bit of darkness, or the bit of intrigue, or the bit of nuance in him. And I think if someone comes along and doesn't try and be Ray Stevenson, but does the and what gives me hope here is I don't think Ray Stevenson is going to be topped. But I think it can be done differently. But also, Balin isn't going to be the same Balin the next time we see him, because he's going to be whatever he is. I don't think we're going to just pick up where we left off here. I think we're going to have a bit of a time jump, and then you can create a new Balin. And even if that wasn't the plan, they can make it the plan, and that's how we can get around it. But I agree, he has to be recast. I don't hate the idea that Abeloth could be the big bad here. And again, like I'm interested in your theories. I just think she's the big bad of season 2. You know what I mean? I think that's kind of what's going on, because we do have to get Ahsoka and Sabine we have to get the gang back together, even if that just happens in the movies. You know what I mean? Or whatever happens next. Another thing to note as well is, and a little Easter egg, a lot of people have picked up on this, that if you look at the sun statue, it is the cut off Sam Witwer who plays the son in the show. So if you look at him versus the actor, it's like, you didn't just make the son, because obviously it's animated, so he doesn't have to look like him, but they have made the son, but they've also made it look like Sam Witwer. So people are speculating that we're going to see live action son, which the son is such an intriguing villain, and we did not get enough of him. Let's talk about the ending. Because in the end, we're left with a reverse of rebels. Ezra and Tron make it home, and Ahsoka and Sabine are now stuck far, far, far away. Your thoughts on the ending? Obviously, Anakin showed up. We got a bit of Mariah there. There's a lot happening. How did you feel about the ending?
I wasn't in any way confused about the ending, and because you see exactly as soon as Tron leaves, and they go into hyperspace, you're like, right, we now know what's happening. Now, there's a couple of different things. Okay, so obviously, Ezra gets back, hides as a stormtrooper, gets on a shuttle, flies over to here. Reunion. Again, I felt like this reunion was very much like the reunion with Sabine. That I was like, they could have done more with this.
No.
But I will say this. The Hera Ezra was like, the two of them just standing there. Hera? Ezra? Oh, it was the chopper one.
Oh, broke me.
It was the fucking chopper one. He was like, I'm like, oh, that's fucking absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Instant floods of tears.
I loved it.
As soon as it happened, instant floods of tears. Yeah. Because Chopper and Ezra have such a little, they're brothers. Do you know what I mean? They're brothers who fight. And they never get along. They're never friends in the show, because they're brothers who always just are like little shits, being little shits to each other. They're constantly fighting. They're constantly ratting the other person out to Hera. And they're constantly like, Chopper's constantly trying to kill him and leave him behind. And Ezra's just like, he's a little shit, you know what I mean? But also in that beautiful brotherly way, whereas everyone, including Hera, was sticking their blasters up at him, Chopper's like, I know who that is. Straight away. Yeah. Beautiful television. Fucking beautiful. And the second Chopper did it, like, it just I just overwhelmed me. It instantly broke me. In a way that I don't know if I've been broken that much while watching TV or movies this year. Beautiful. Yeah. Beautiful.
I thought it was fantastic. It's very intriguing what's happening with Dathomir, because it's very clear that's where they ended up. Yeah. They went to Dathomir. So you've got I felt like that scene where Tron is on the balcony with the Great Mothers was very reminiscent of the Attack of the Clones, the end of Attack of the Clones, when Palpatine is looking out over his troops. over the newly minted clones, we'll call them. And you've got Tron and the Night Sisters looking down on all. Effectively, we know what they are. We don't know exactly who, but we know what they are. They are stasis pods or coffins or whatever we're going to call them. But I think now what that is that they've gone to Dathomir, where clearly the Night Sisters' power is going to be more potent, because Dathomir was there. You know, I know they came from the other galaxy originally, but this is effectively in this galaxy there. That's where they're going to be the most powerful. So they will be able to. I'm assuming it's got to be Night Sisters and Night Brothers in those coffins. And like what you said that earlier on, what Ezra said, Tron awoke the Great Mothers. I feel like the Great Mothers are now going to awake what's in these fucking things. Not necessarily. I don't think it necessarily to be like zombies, because I was watching a video and they were speculating that the Night Sisters or the Great Mothers would they will effectively have zombies in those coffins. Don't necessarily think it's going to be that. I think whatever awoke them, they are going to awake in these coffins, and it's going to be literally an army of fucking Night Sisters and Night Brothers. That's going to be epic, absolutely amazing. Again,
can I just throw something out here? Have you thought about this? Dathomir, former destroyed planet, has been reclaimed by bad guys. Mandalore, former destroyed planet, has been reclaimed by good guys. Yeah. And this is all the same universe.
But there's one other thing, and I'm going to say it to you now. Now, if you haven't thought of this, or if you haven't seen this or heard about this, I'm like, you're going to like this.
Okay, hit me.
They name dropped somebody, I think, in last week's episode. So do you remember the training video that they left?
I know where you're going.
He name dropped Dooku, Grievous, and Ventress.
Yeah, oh man. Oh, hook it to my veins.
No, hook it to your penis. No, fuck this vein thing. Where is Ventress?
Yeah, she's
where is she? She's on Dathomir. She died on Dathomir.
Yeah.
So she's gonna be brought back. And if Filoni doesn't bring her back, I'd be very, very disappointed. But I feel we've now got an army of Night Sisters, Night Brothers, Force wielders. We could have lightsabers. Fucking think of a new Sith Order type of thing. This is what I feel we're getting here. But again, I want to point something out. I said that it was like Tron is on the balcony and the Night Sisters there and they're looking over their troops, essentially. But again, you see the disdain on Tron's face. He's not a happy man. This is an alliance that he wants no part of. He really doesn't. He just wants to get back to essentially take control of the Imperial remnant that's there. Now, if we're going to go, am I able to go into it now? What I think is going to happen? Okay. So I said to you that I think that if Abeloth is a thing, or if you know, this power or whatever it is actually going to be the big bad, I still think we're going to see, and if we don't see this, I'll actually be really disappointed. You're still going to see a fight between the Imperials, between we'll call it the Empire, and the New Republic, because Tron is there. He's going to get them all back. He's going to get the band back together, and we're going to see some serious fighting between them. There is going to be a war or whatever it may be. But not for the reasons that we think. I think what's happening here is Tron had to get back here. We know that Tron, he hates throwing away lives, that he was working for the Empire basically to make sure that his own people were safe, that he wanted to safeguard them and to protect them. And if that meant by becoming a fucking Grand Admiral to protect them, he would do it. So I think we're definitely going to see a fight between the New Republic and the Imperial Remnant, or the Empire, wherever it may, led by Tron. But I think the reason that Tron is doing it, it's not for him to be the heir to the Empire, or for him to control for him to create a new empire. He felt that he would be the one best suited to either protect the Empire or protect the Chiss. So I think he's going to see the New Republic as somebody who's ill-equipped to protect the galaxy from the threat that they've just left behind. I think he's going there and he's like, right, I need to be in control of this, because only I can actually with all the power of the Empire, of the galaxy, of the New Republic, whatever, I can do this. So we're going to get a fight between Tron's Imperials and the New Republic. I think whatever happens, because we don't really know what's going to happen. We haven't a fucking clue. It's so up in the air that we have to wildly speculate like this. But what I feel is going to happen is Ahsoka and Hu Yang and Sabine are going to make it back from there. Shit's going to happen along the way, but they're going to make it back. But they're going to unwittingly bring whatever this power is that Baylan Skoll is searching for. Or it's going to follow them back wherever it may be. So they're going to get back. This entity, this power is going to get back as well. And then we're going to see what what happened in the books is the New Republic and the Imperial Remnant a truce, and they're going to work together to fight this new threat. And I think that's because I don't, as much as I love Tron, and he's a great bad guy, but I much prefer him in the Timothy Zahn, the new books.
Yeah,
where he's not a bad guy, he's not a good guy, he's somewhere in the middle. He does what's essentially right. Now, if that means he's going to decimate a planet in his mind, and if that's the right thing to do, then he's going to do it. But for me, I'm like, I would like to see essentially be a bit of a tweener and right, doing this for the right reasons, but he still has to go through the Republic to do it. They're going to have a truce, and we're going to go from there. I would love to see that. So, I definitely think you've got Shin and her new group of red armored guys. They're going to go up against Ahsoka and Sabine, while Ahsoka and Sabine is probably looking for Baylan Skoll. I don't think you're going to see Baylan Skoll and Shin kind of get back together as such. I think essentially she's going to see just how bad of a thing that he's looking for, and she may turn or she may help them wherever it may be. They're essentially going to go back on, but they're either going to unwittingly bring this power with them, or the power is going to follow them. And now it's wild. And the thing is, the reason I'm going so far out there is because we know Filoni is a huge admirer of the Legends books.
Yeah.
That's why the Mortis gods were brought in to the likes of the Clone Wars and to Rebels. It's why we're getting Tron. So I just feel if he's going along that story, he has to give us something really epic. And Tron just being the heir to the Empire, as cool as I think it would be, it's not epic enough. And I feel that it needs to be a dark side presence. It needs to be something to do with the dark side for it to be that epic level. And Abeloth could be that entity.
Okay.
How she does it, how it works, I don't know.
That's
I
why
could be completely wrong. I'm still going to watch the next series. Just because this one episode pissed me off doesn't mean I'm not going to watch it.
Okay.
This is not the Wheel of Time. Wheel of Time was shite.
Yeah,
I'll never watch the second season.
Yeah, no, it was awful. But you're right. Interesting theory. I like it. And there's a lot of the pieces are already there. You know what I mean? I don't think you're crazy. Although I think what this episode should have showed us and taught us is that this is what they're telling it is. They're saying heir to the Empire a lot. They're saying Tron's the big bad. They're saying the galaxy's in jeopardy. And we got to look at what they're saying here. So I tend to lean more, I think Abeloth is a great shout. Or some resurrected version of the Mortis gods, because they're gods. So are they ever truly dead? Or were they just kind of vanquished in that particular arc? I think they're the villains. I lean towards they're the villains of season 2. But Tron is the big bad. But again, a lot of what you're saying is already there. So it's just how did the pieces fall? Yeah. That's why we watch the show.
I do have 2 more. Before we move, I do have 2 more. Okay. I have not lost complete faith in that Ezra will be bad. I have not lost complete faith in that.
Let it go. I'm
not letting it go. Not letting it go. But there's one other thing, and I've seen it all over the internet since yesterday, is that, oh, isn't it great that Anakin's arc is over? He was redeemed and this, that. I'm sorry, but no. That actually, him being in the end of the episode sets him up for being in season 2. I'm sorry, but it does. I'm like, I want more.
Yeah.
I want more of Anakin because like he's looking over her and he's like, why couldn't he be there and why couldn't he give her advice? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely, hook that to my penis.
Do you know, but like, you know what makes me certain, as well as just the fact of the outpouring of love that the world has had for Hayden playing Filoni's version of Anakin, which should be the only version of Anakin. George Lucas just got it wrong. He fucked it. But apart from just the outpouring of love that necessitates him coming back, the fact that Sabine was able to feel Anakin is very interesting. So what does that mean? So again, yeah, I agree. We haven't seen the last of Hayden. We're a bit tight for time, and I do want to kind of discuss. I do like at the start of the series, we spoke about our expectations for this, and we kind of both settled on Rebel season 5. Let Dave Filoni cook, and that's happened. That's you can safely say we got Rebel season 5.
I agree.
Yep. Dave Filoni has cooked. I know, obviously, this episode pissed you off, and again, don't disagree with what you say, even if I felt differently. Did this series live up to our expectations? So, when we look at what we expected versus what we got, can we say Ahsoka was a success?
I'm going to say yes, for a Star Wars fan's perspective. And the reason I say that is that, yeah, okay, there was parts of this episode that pissed me off. Yes, it did. And the ending, as cool as it was, and I can genuinely say it was a really cool ending. I like cliffhangers. I like not knowing everything that's happening. But the whole Ray Stevenson thing has really kind of upset me. And, you know, I it'll take me a while to get over that. But I think as a whole, the series was quite good. I stupidly thought last night that the series was soured on me, but I'm stopped being an idiot, and I've thought it was like, no, it's been a great show. It's been a great series. It's probably been the best Star Wars series, or if it's not the best, it's at least on par with season 1 or 2 Mandalorian and Andor. You know, it's been that good, I think.
Okay,
but that's my perspective, and I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I asked Laura, my wife, last night what she thought. And I was very surprised by what she said.
Okay.
She said, no. I'm like, what do you mean no? She was like, well, I watched every episode and I thought it was good, and I was waiting for it to go somewhere. And she just felt it didn't go anywhere in the last episode. I'm like, right. Now, it might be a thing where there was so much in this episode that you may need to explain to non-Star Wars fans, because this was a very Clone Wars Rebels centric episode. There was a lot going on in this, and like, what the fuck is going on here?
Yeah.
So it might be that, or it was the fact that she just said, no, I didn't like it. I'm like, oh, so you just didn't like the episode? Didn't like the show. I'm like, all right, okay. And I was so taken aback by that. I was like, but you liked every episode before this. Yeah, but then when you look at it as a whole, I didn't like it. I'm like, okay.
It's fair.
I was like, all right, fuck off then.
But like, I think that's fair, and I'm really interested. Thanks for bringing that up, because that was something that fascinated me. I think it is a fair criticism of this show that it's like it alienates people who haven't watched the Clone Wars and Rebels. But if you watch Clone Wars and Rebels, you just don't care, because you're like, that I want more of that. That is the story that I'm so invested in. Yeah. So I want that to be a success. I joke when I say I don't care. I do. What I want is for people to go back, for this to inspire people to go back and watch them, in the same way that so much of the Star Wars that has happened in the Disney era has made me go back and kind of watch them and become a fan and become as ingrained as I am in the storylines and make them like some of my favorite stories that I've ever kind of witnessed, particularly in Star Wars. I would say this is not up there with Mando. No, sorry, this is for me, this beats Mando. It's not as good as Andor. And it's just not for me. Nothing like, in terms of just pure story, in terms of pure like scripting, in terms of character work, in terms of everything, Andor is just in a league of its own. That doesn't take anything away from this. That Andor is just a perfect show. Where they absolutely
I can't disagree. I really can't. And I saw the trailer for season 2 the other day, and I'm like, oh my God.
And I love both of them. They're completely different flavors of Star Wars, and I'm so glad that we're in a period where next year we're going to get Andor season 2, and the year after that we're probably going to get Ahsoka season 2. So there's enough room for both of them. Do you know what I mean?
I don't know about that. We're going to be waiting a while. One strike is over in Hollywood. The other strike is still ongoing. So the writers can certainly get back to work and come up with compelling stories, but the actors haven't agreed to come back to work yet. So they will get back, but it's like everything that we love is going to take a while to come back to us.
The studios,
no one else better fucking die. Like, come on.
Yeah. Well, this is it. Everyone, can you please just survive forever, eternally, because I love you all, and the casting and everything around it has been amazing. I'm actually not going to get into it that much more because you've got 7 weeks of me telling you why I love it. I don't think I need to add that much more. So before we go, I want to look at the year, because we're now at the end of our Star Wars year, essentially, because Skeleton Crew was slated to be released before the end of the year originally, but it looks like that's getting pushed, largely due to a large part of scheduling to do with the strikes and everything else going on. So this is the end of our Star Wars year, and it's been a busy year. What I want to ask is, when you look back at 2023, was it a good year for Star Wars or a bad year? And what were your highlights, and what were your main highlight and your main low light of the year?
I think Ahsoka is definitely a highlight, because obviously we got season 3 Mando. When did we get season 3 Mando?
We got season 3, yeah.
Was it the start? Was it January?
No, it was March.
March, okay. So we got season, and the expectations for season 3 of Mando were as high as anything could possibly be, because we'd gotten an amazing season 1, amazing season 2. We gotten Mando 2.5 in Boba. So it was like, right, the expectations are going to be great for Mandalorian season 3. And it just didn't hit the mark. There's some great moments in season 3, don't get me wrong, but it just didn't hit the mark. It needed to have the full focus of Filoni and Favreau together, and I think because we didn't get that, it was lacking something. But for me, that for me was like, that was a disappointment. I still liked it. Don't get me wrong, I still liked it, because as I said, no matter what you give me Star Wars, I'm going to like it. But it's all dependent on how highly I like it or how lowly I like it. I'm still going to like it. But for me, Ahsoka was just, I just loved it. I know I criticized this last episode, but it was pure Filoni. That's what it was. If you look at any season of Rebels and then look at this show, it's pure Filoni from start to finish, and especially that ending. That nobody could have come up with that ending apart from Filoni, because he loves to do that. He will give you 5 or 6 different things, but only give you a snippet of what you're going to get, and then goes to black. I'm like, you absolute bastard. Yes, explain nothing there. You fucker. I know I have to wait 72 years for this strike to be fucking over and to watch it. But in the grand scheme of things, when taking the Bale and Skull stuff aside, next season is going to be brilliant, because there's so much. And there wasn't a single series of Rebels that was bad. Not one.
No.
And if Filoni keeps going the way he's going, this wasn't a bad season. This was a great season. If the next season is anything to go by, or if that last episode is anything to go by, it's going to be fantastic. So for me, the high, obviously, going to see this in the cinema, was like just brilliant. It was amazing to start the show off. It hit the mark 90% of the time, which is very difficult to do in Star Wars. You'd agree with me there. It's so difficult to hit the mark. Really, really good. Unfortunately, Mandalorian let me down. I hope it gets one more season.
Yeah,
I really do. If it gets one more season, I'm like, I can seriously redeem himself, I think. I'm actually finding it hard though to think what other, apart from Mandalorian and Ahsoka, what else do we have this year?
We had the Bad Batch. We had, the Bad Batch was phenomenal. It was phenomenal. Like that was up there. Like I thought about that, where I'm like, is the Bad Batch my highlight? And I don't know if it was, but man, it forced the issue. Yeah, it really does. The issue.
It not only was a great season, but it's as intriguing a storyline as Ahsoka.
Yeah.
It really is, because when you get to that last episode, you don't know what the fuck is going on. Like you kind of have an idea, but you're like, we really have no idea what's going on here.
Yeah.
We really, really don't. And it's Omega, isn't it? That's her name. Omega.
Yeah.
Omega. We have no idea what's going on with her. That's why it's so exciting. And again, it's Filoni. It is Filoni. Filoni made Bad Batch. This is pure.
Well,
Filoni.
no, sorry, he didn't. He's a producer on it, and obviously it came from characters that he wrote into Clone Wars. So he is a part of it, but it's not his baby.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's still very Filoni-like. I have to say,
it
for
is.
how intriguing it is so good. Actually, yeah, when you say it now, it is difficult to decide which is better between Bad Batch and Ahsoka. Like, fuck, that's how good Bad was. I remember when we first watched the first season, we were like, that's okay. It's going okay. And then you watch season 2, you're like, this is as good as Rebels. Like, this is next level. This is great. This is brilliant. What the fuck's gonna happen next? And then it ends. I'm like, you cocksuckers, what the fuck? Now, the only thing I'll say is that voice acting is not included in the strike. So we could be getting that sooner than we think. I think would like to see that.
It's also the last season though, so I'm not sure if I necessarily wanted to end. That's the only thing. Like I wanted to be a part, but I love it. And I'm gonna go out on a limb. I'm gonna say my hot take here. This was the best year in Star Wars history.
Wow.
Ahsoka. Bad Batch season 2, Jedi Survivor. They are that is 3 epic wins that I don't know. And I look back and I did some more research while we were chatting there. And I looked back earlier today as well, and I was kind of looking into years we got releases. Because again, you have to remember that, like, look, you could say, is 1981 the best year of Star Wars? Because we got Empire, and that's arguably the best Star Wars property ever, and the most iconic thing in Star Wars ever. Yeah. But like, again, that was the only Star Wars we got that year. Do you know what I mean? Like, so, you know, when you look at volume and you look at everything else, like this year, Mando season 3 was not terrible. There were weeks that we liked it. You know, it's a fine TV show. It's just disappointing that it was the season where we realized that Mando wasn't perfect, because they played a perfect game with season 1 and 2. That we had that, whatever about Obi-Wan, that could be a bit of a disappointment, even though we enjoyed it. But whatever about like Book of Boba Fett, again, some really high highs, but like, kind of a meh story. It was kind of mediocre Star Wars, but we're like, right, Mando's not going to be mediocre. That was the low light of it, but it wasn't a terrible season. There were some really good episodes, some iconic moments that I really enjoyed, and it sets up a really intriguing kind of premise here. So I don't hate it, but that was the worst thing in this year. And that's fucking incredible, because they just knocked it out of the park with 3 things. And they got this project right. And this was the clincher for me, because this carries so much weight for fans like you and me, that if they got it wrong, it's not going to put us off Star Wars. Nothing is ever going to. But it would just put off our faith. It could make someone into, I'm just going to watch the old movies, and I'm just going to watch the things I like, and I don't believe in the new content. You know what I mean? And this has re-energized the base. So this is really important. Bad Batch is doing a similar job for like keeping the animated kind of quality high and kind of evolving that. But also the fact that it's not Dave Filoni actually is amazing, because it means we're getting more people in the mix and more people who kind of are on the Filoni train. That's really exciting. And then what Jedi Survivor is doing in the video game world as well, like kind of giving us kind of the first like classic Star Wars game in nearly 2 decades. For me, I can't think of a better year. The only year I could think of where it comes close is 2020, where we got season 2 of Mando and the last season of Clone Wars. And that's a pretty fucking steep lineup. But for me,
that's a good year. But I you know what, I'm not going to disagree with you. You know, you could look back and say like the year A New Hope came out, the year Empire came out. But it was that one single thing.
Yeah.
Whereas we've had loads this year, and if you were to, tie it all in together. So season 3 of Mando, you've got season 2 of Bad Batch, you've got Jedi Survivor, you've got Ahsoka. We almost got Skeleton Crew by the end of the year, but I think that's going to go into 2024. this was a good year for Star Wars. And I think this will actually go down as probably the turning point, because before this, people had been energized again by Mando, absolutely. But it was still, people were still divided over Mando as well. Whereas I don't think there's going to be as many people divided over Ahsoka. And similarly this year. This year will definitely go down as probably the one of, if not the best years for Star Wars content. I think we should probably say it like that, because obviously we're not getting there's no film this year.
Yeah.
You know, we're not getting a film or anything this year, and it's going to be a good few years before we get any more. But for me, I can't disagree, because we had some epic moments this year. We had some really good content. Me as a gamer, how I haven't gotten to Jedi Survivor yet, I'll never know.
Get on it.
All I'll say is
so
I have wanted to see. I have Fallen Order. Okay, I have it downloaded on the PlayStation. I have no controller to play it with, because I have 2 controllers. Both of them are broken, and both of them have been sitting in Vic Viper's house for the past.
I love how this has become a running thing. Just giving Vic shit because
Vic
he
has me fucking controllers, and he hasn't fixed my fucking controllers. Now I'm not giving out, because I know he's really busy with his job, and that's absolutely fine.
It's kind of passive aggressive. You kind of are.
Of course it is. He's an arsehole. Why is he aggressive? He's an arsehole. I'm going to get onto him now. Where's my controllers, bitch?
Vic, and that's the takeaway from all of this. Vic, get the fuck on it and fix Gerry's controller, for fuck's sake. You've heard of Star Wars here. But Gerry, do you know what? We do need to wrap it up, and that makes me sad. But another thing that's made this the best Star Wars history, Star Wars year in history, is getting to have these discussions on the regular with you, Star Gers. I've absolutely loved it every week, and thank you so much. Cannot wait to do it again. We've got Skeleton Crew next year. We've got Andor next year. We don't even know what else we have next year. And who knows? Maybe it's going to be good. And look, reach out to me whenever Vic gets off his hole and fucking fixes those controllers. Right, Gerry, an absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining us. And yeah, we've loved that. And chat soon on Patreon.
Thanks for having me. Good luck.